Doo-doo. Am I in focus? Hi y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amira, and today I have for you a video idea that I got from Paulina from Paulina Beauty. She recently did a video on her channel where she talked about old palettes that she still wanted to purchase. And I thought that was such a good idea because I think we all kind of have that like running wish list in the back of our minds of palettes or makeup products that we still want to purchase that we just haven't pulled the trigger on yet. So first up, and I'm going to squish to the side of my squeaky chair so I can place a picture here. So first up is the Natasha Denona Glam palette. Now this palette has been on my list basically since it first came out, and I almost purchased it last year during her little Black Friday sale. Natasha always does like this huge sale on her website where it's like buy one get one half off or buy one get one free, or she has a bundle deal, things like that. I was going to get the Glam palette. I was going to get the Biba palette. I decided after months and months of lusting after the Biba palette that I just did not need it. And sort of once I made that decision, I haven't thought about that palette since. But the Glam palette still haunts my dreams. I think about it, I see it, I'm like, wow, I really need that palette. It's beautiful, it's cool toned, which I really love. When I was first getting into eyeshadows, I was really into warm neutrals. Now I'm really more into like cool leaning neutrals. The taupey metallics in that palette, it's so pretty. But I haven't been able to pull the trigger on it. It's one of her midi palettes, so it's $65. It's not one of the $129 palettes. So I wouldn't even say it's like, you know, it's not at the higher end of her price range by any means. But for some reason, I just haven't been able to do it. And I don't know, I'm gonna assess again like I did last year with the Biba palette. When her Black Friday sale rolls around, I think I'm gonna really look and assess and see if I'm going to just bite the bullet and do it. But yeah, that one still gets me. And it's not even that I think it's like the most unique, amazing palette ever. It's really not. And I could probably find a cheaper version of that, or even if I really dug through my own collection, could probably find those shades and those tones in my own collection. It's just something about the curation of them that just, it gets me. Next up on the list is the Milk Cosmetics Millennial Pinks palette. This palette has had terrible reviews. Everyone I've seen who's tried it disliked it, and yet me being me, I am more curious about it because of this reason. It's just how my brain works sometimes when it comes to makeup. I call it, you know, this insane perverse need to try all the things that people hate. So for that reason, it is on my list. It is also because of the bad reviews that it has not been purchased yet. I haven't been able to bring myself to do it. Melt's price point is really on the high end of things. The majority of their palettes range between $48 and $58, and I believe the Millennial Pinks is $58. It is on sale right now at Sephora for I think $40. That's still too much in my opinion. I'm willing to pay like 30 tops for it. So for that reason, I haven't purchased it. I do think it's a beautiful color story. I myself have never had any issues with Melt's formula. I know a lot of people have very mixed feelings about their eyeshadow palette formula specifically. I do not. I own quite a few Melt Cosmetics palettes and I haven't had any issues with any of them. So for me, it's still a color story that I'm really attracted to, and I'm sort of willing to take the risk, but I'm only willing to take the risk at a very specific price point. Next up on the list is the Dior Birds of a Feather 5-pan palette from their Fall 2021 collection. I saw this palette and was like, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. It's all metallics and shimmers, which usually I'm not the biggest fan of. I like to have at least one or two mattes in a palette. But the colors are so pretty. And the reviews, I've seen a few sort of meh reviews, but the majority of the reviews and the looks that I've seen done with it have been so pretty. But this palette sold out and I haven't seen it in stock since, so I don't know if it's ever even coming back. Was their fall collection, so probably not. But it is, in fact, still on my wish list, and if I come across it, I'm gonna purchase it. Next up on the list is the Nars Climax palette. This palette is also from a fall 2021 collection, so it's not that old, but it's sold out everywhere except for Nars's website. And I really wanted to get it from maybe Nordstrom or Macy's because I have rewards and I can use Nordy points and all this kind of stuff. I did want to spend the $49 on it, and I still really don't want to spend $49. It's still in stock on the Nars website last time I checked. So I'm thinking come Black Friday, I probably will purchase it if Nars is having a really good sale. I just feel that, again, Nars's price point is a little high as far as their palettes go sometimes. And so I feel like for me, if I can get it in the $35 range, I'd be really, really happy. But that color story is so pretty. It's such a me color story. Do I have these shades already? Yes, of course I do. But there's something about that color story and that layout that just speaks to me, and all of the reviews I've seen for it have raved about the formula. I only own one other Nars palette, and it is the Nars, I think it's called After Hours palette. It's a limited edition palette from 20. Next up on the list is the Patrick Ta Major Dimension palette. I had to look up the name of it because I couldn't even remember what the name of it was, but okay. This, I admit, is very much a basic palette. It's a palette of neutrals and with neutral metallics. I get it. It's boring. It's basic. I still want it. It's something about the layout that's so scrumptious to me, and it really just, I don't know, it does something to me when I see it. Again, I think it's really expensive. I think Patrick Ta's price points are pretty high for what they are. The products are. I don't own a lot of Patrick Ta. I own a couple of things here. I own a blush that I never really use, and I own the clear brow thingy that's supposed to be like soap brows that I never really use. So that's one of the things that has kind of stopped me from purchasing, is that the Patrick Ta things that I do own, I don't really use. But this palette, I feel like I could get a lot of use out of. The colors are just the perfect neutrals. You know, they're not cool, they're not too warm, they're just kind of like right there in the middle, which really appeals to me. I think it's a beautiful palette. But I mean, it reminds me a lot of like the brown tones in Anastasia Beverly Hills' Soft Glam palette, which I love and which I already own. So again, it's beautiful, it calls to me, but what stops me from purchasing it is the fact that it's not that unique to my collection. I could find those shades in my collection somewhere, and the price point. That's what's stopping me. But overall, every time I see this palette, I'm just like, oh, it's so pretty. But yeah, this one I may purchase it if I can find it at a decent discount, or I may never purchase it. It's very much like teetering on the edge of one or the other. Like, it could go either way. And last on the list is the Norvina Volume 5 palette. Now, my relationship with these huge ABH Norvina palettes is complicated. The first one I bought, and I kind of purchased it with a bit of a like chip on my shoulder. I was like, I'm gonna purchase it, but I'm probably not gonna like it. And I loved it. And then I purchased, I believe it's volume 3, which is the orangey green one. Beautiful palette. Those palettes actually have beautiful, beautiful formulas. They're very different from the traditional ABH formulas, which are very sort of softly pressed, super, super pigmented, lots of kick up in the pan. These are very firmly pressed. They're still very pigmented. They're very, very firmly pressed. They don't have a lot of kick up in the pan, but the formula is just lovely. It's a really nice formula. I will say I have 1, 3, and I believe 4. if that's the one that's sort of like the pinky one. I have never used 4. I'm gonna straight up and say I have it. I've never touched it. I've swatched it a little bit, you know, on the back of the hand. It's beautiful, but I don't think of it. That's the thing about those palettes. As lovely as they are, I just don't think of them. And I think it's because they're such large palettes, and I'm generally not a very big fan of super large palettes. I tend to like a little bit more of curation involved with eyeshadow palettes. So for that reason, they just don't speak to me in that way. When I tend to use them when I'm doing very creative, sort of more avant-garde looks on, say, like Instagram. I use them a lot for like Halloween looks and things like that, and I think they're perfect for that. But you, of course, can also make beautiful looks out of them. It's just that they're not palettes that I think to reach for all the time. And it's for that reason that I have not purchased Volume 5. I think the color story is beautiful. I know a lot of people talk about the fact that the palettes are very, very similar and that they're kind of dupe themselves. Yes and no. As someone who has 3 of the palettes, 2 of which have a lot of purpley pink tones, I would say some shades yes, a lot of shades no. I think it's less repetitive than people realize. Once you get the palettes in front of you and you actually swatch and use the shades, they're not that similar. Volume 5 looks like the baby of Volume 1 and Volume 4, and I'm here for that. I think the colors are beautiful. The reviews I've seen have been very 50-50. Some people really love that palette and some people really, really hate it. So, but for me, because I've tried the other ones and I like the formula, I feel like I know I would enjoy the formula. I just can't justify purchasing another one when I have one that I've literally never used. That would just be not very financially smart, or even just smart as far as collection of makeup goes. So yeah, those are the 5 or 6 rather eyeshadow palettes that I still have on my list, that I still think about, that when I see them I go, oh, but I have yet to open my wallet and give my money to anyone for them. Will I? Perhaps. And if I do, I will do another video. I will do an update video for you guys where I talk about all the old palettes that I then bought. But I tend to purchase palettes slowly anyway. When I first got into makeup, I used to be one of those people who went right out and had to have the palette as soon as it came out. As my collection has grown and I own so much makeup now, I really have to sit and think about if a palette is going to add anything new to what I already have. Take for instance the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz palette. That palette is stunning. I will not be purchasing it as of now. Who knows, maybe a year from now, if it's on sale, I might purchase it. I said the same thing about Mercury Retrograde. I wasn't going to purchase it, and then I got it for half off, and it's a beautiful palette. I have mixed feelings about it though, because of the colors in it and the way that they read on the eye as opposed to how they look in the pan. But it's still a beautiful palette. But the Rose Quartz one I have very, very complicated feelings about. I feel like the color story, the only thing that makes that color story really, really interesting are the metallics. Every other shade in there are things that I already either own or things that Huda Beauty herself has already done. Huda is known for duping herself consistently with her tones. And for me, I have mauves. You know, if I want mauvey, dusky mauvies, mauvey tones, mauvies, dusky mauve tones, I have things like Pat McGrath Divine Rose. I have the Dose of Colors Making Mauve 5-pan palette. I have Mercury Retrograde, which has quite a few mauves in it. I have palettes that lend themselves to that. And so for me, the only things in that palette that would make it interesting and unique are the metallics. And I feel like even the metallics I could probably dupe within my collection. If I really sat down and went through all of the stuff that I own, I could probably dupe out that palette and, you know, to some capacity. Not the Petri dish looking shade, but no one wants to dupe that anyway. I don't know why she added that into another palette. I feel like Huda likes to troll her customers with stuff like that. No one wants that shade. No one cares. And then she made like a big single one for highlighting, and I'm just like, ma'am, no, no, I will not be purchasing that. So yeah, so if that's something you guys want to see, let me know in the comments below. Do you want to see me try to dupe out the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz with something I own or things that I own? I don't own a ton of singles. I'm not really a single shadow connoisseur. I own a ton of palettes though, and I'm very confident that I could get pretty close to that palette using things that I own. So again, if you want to see me try that, let me know in the comments. But that is it for now. I will see you all in the next video. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.